out today with my brand new phone and thought I'd just do like a vlog. I'm out to water the polytunnel. We have our nice tap here that we installed last year. We literally had like a hose pipe that went from the front of the house all the way through to the orchard, so you can sort of see there's the house. So imagine all the way around the front of the house, all the way down here, and it went all the way to the other side of the orchard to water the last year it was wheat and potatoes, and this year it's barley and oats. So we grew some oats last year and it was very, very successful. So I'll just give you a quick tour. Here we have some carrots under fleece, and at the bottom we have some kale and broccoli, and here in the polytunnel we have lots of little things sprouting. We have peas and asparagus. So the asparagus doesn't seem to have wanted to come up yet, but not helped by the fact that it's dried out. Here we have spring onion. I think this is probably 2 trays of broccoli, here and here. And then we have a perennial kale that was just about to die, so I salvaged it and had to repot it again. We have more trays on the ground here. We have lots of different things coming up. There's trays everywhere. Once we get a greenhouse up and running, then hopefully that'll take this out of play and we'll have our floor back again. So everything needs a really good soaking. We've had a problem with slugs, so we've been trying a few salt traps and trying not to kill our tomatoes at the same time, but that doesn't seem to have happened. So it's kind of been a bit of a slow start to the year, but I'm okay with that. We're okay. We'll get there eventually. So now I have to go on the famous hunt to try and find where the end of the hose is gone, because we have a hose as long as the one we have. It could be anywhere, and thankfully I found it right here, not too far. Right, very handy. My super hose. We're on our way. So there you go. Now we do have some comfrey on the go, and we're going to get some barrels, because you don't really like using tap water. It would be good to make some of our kind of own comfrey filled water and compost tea, that sort of thing. So this is just kind of a stopgap at the minute. We've got strawberries and rocket here. We had a whole bed of strawberries here that we lost to leather jackets. And how you know it's leather jackets is because you come along and everything's literally just sitting on top of the soil. There's no roots. The roots have just completely disappeared. And so we raked the bed down, got all the leather jackets out of it, and replanted some new strawberries because we have no shortage of strawberries here. That over there, that's my fig tree. It's doing really well. I had an olive tree as well, but the dog decided that it was going to sleep in the same bed and that it was going to use the olive pot as a bed, and unfortunately the dog competed with the olive tree and won. So I'm going to have to get a new olive tree. So I'll take you a wee tour now just through the orchard. We had wonderful success last year in putting up a really good deer-proof fence. It's quite extensive. It stretches quite a fair distance from one side of the orchard right to the other. And we have a compost bin that we built here, and that's going to be the second section, which is right now filled with the compost bags, because it took us a while to get the concrete in for this because the ground is so uneven. It needed kind of leveled out a bit, so we thought concrete would just be the easiest thing to do. So but this is ready now for turning, so we just need to put some slots like this that are removable. These kind of just slide in and out. That's the theory. And give it a turn. We've got everything in here, old vegetables and cardboard and paper and kitchen stuff. And we have a wee section here for our wood chipper, so whenever we have any kind of like scraggles and ends bits from our wood, we can just chip them in there and throw those straight in too. And over here we have some of the raspberries that we've taken cuttings off, and they kind of prefer shade, so that's why there. But last year we had planned, you know, to have this section here, which is our plum trees. We planned to have that kind of just like fruit, like a fruit place, so plums with like blackcurrants at the bottom, surrounded by comfrey and borage, and we tried strawberries, but what we didn't realize was there's just so much creeping buttercup in the beds, and they just completely took over. So I've been working at the minute to kind of get those strawberries out of there and replant them in a garden that I built up beside the solar panels, up beside the old stables, which I'll show you later. I'm going to move them there, and hopefully they'll have a better life, because there's very few weeds there. It's very nice. But our plan was to have that fruit section there, like a permaculture kind of garden, you know, with different layers, growing in kind of no dig beds around the plum trees, and it was fine except for the buttercup. And then our plan was to have then this section as a vegetable garden, and it looks a little bit worse for wear, because what we didn't realize was there was just extensive Japanese knotweed here, and we worked really hard. These are no dig beds, you know. We had cardboard put down and then compost put on top, and we had to do frames because it's quite a slope here, so we kind of made terraces there, and that's kind of like the pea palace up there, just to keep our peas in. But yeah, no, knotweed came up pretty much in all the beds, and we had to get the glyphosate out and just kind of devour the place with it, and we lost a lot of stuff, and we don't really want to grow anything in these beds anymore. And like, I was searching for a solution, and I think we've come up with something pretty good. And basically it's a carbon based spray that you can just put in your typical sprayer, and you spray it on the beds, and that's supposed to bind with the glyphosate and make it inert, which means that, you know, once we order that and do it within about a week to 2 weeks, these beds will be like they had never had glyphosate on them. So we're definitely going to do that, because I really don't like losing out on this space in terms of becoming like sufficient and growing the things that we need to grow. You know, this is space now that's just kind of just had to sit there because of the knotweed. Despite all our best attempts to get the knotweed, obviously it's kind of a work in progress. Like they say, I think in the first year you get like 90% of it. And so we've kind of been walking around and surveying the place, and you know, I have seen some bits of knotweed coming up. There's a bit around here. I'll see if I can find it and show you. So I had to have a bit of a hunt around, but I find it. It's right here. You can see it. It's quite a decent stem. It looks like red asparagus. It is edible. Apparently it tastes like a savoury rhubarb. So there's obviously a good plant here. You know, there's another bit there, and there are other bits along the wall, just this area here. But there doesn't seem to be anything coming up in the beds, which is really great. That's going to allow us just to kind of go forward with it. We have other weeds coming up, which is okay. Weeds are fine. You have to expect a bit of weeds. But no, we're not seeing any of those kind of little red shoots coming up through the ground that would indicate that knotweed is in these beds anymore. Actually, I'll see if I can find like a younger piece for you, just to show you what it looks like when it's just coming up. You see there's a bit there. That's a younger piece right here. It's got leaves, but basically it just looks like a little red shoot, like that, and it turns into these kind of reddy, copperish looking leaves. They're anti-cancerous as well, I believe. Here's an older piece, so it doesn't stay red. It's the stem stays red. So we're going to have to respray. We're going to hold off on respraying. The best time to do it is in early autumn. This is the stuff that died. This is how big it was. So this is a dead stem now. That will just break. I'll just take a strimmer to that. That's dead now. And that's not going to come back. But yes, 90%. And definitely I can see that there has been like a big decrease in the knotweed here, which is really good. You know, I don't like spraying things, but it's kind of essential, and was kind of a bit of a heartache last year when we spent so much money and so much time and effort into these beds. We did know there was knotweed in this area. We thought it was just in one place, and that's because, I think, this is my theory, it doesn't particularly like shade. And there was an ash tree that was over there. I'll see the stump right here. We felled it to obviously have our vegetable garden here, and I think with felling it, that's kind of just encouraged the knotweed to go a bit crazy, because there's a lot more light in. Because at the other side of the garden, at the other side of the orchard actually, on the south side, there is a patch of knotweed there too, and a large hedge, and where the shadow of the hedge is, the knotweed doesn't grow. So that's kind of my theory. Look, it doesn't really take long for it to come up, as you see. That's decent. Like, you know, this place, there was nothing here at all 2 weeks ago. Right, I'll go take you and show you our barley and our oats. So we're coming in here just through the gate into the patch that we got ploughed. Now, I'm not really a big fan of ploughing, because ploughing, as people may or may not know, releases carbon. And yes, well, you might agree or disagree with anthropogenic carbon emissions and all that sort of thing, but the reality is that food needs carbon to grow, and if you release all the carbon on the ground, then you have to rely on supplementing with nitrogen. And that's why we have a nitrogen-based agricultural system. I'd rather have a carbon-based agricultural system, where we kind of build up the layers off the ground, and that feeds the microbes, and the microbes feed the food. So this is actually got ploughed. It's not really a good ground. I'll show you in a second. Originally it was full of laurel, and we had to dig it out with a digger and put it all back the way it was. I don't like laurel, it's invasive, it's non-native. No thank you, it can go somewhere else. But no, the ground is very, very uneven. There used to be probably old flower beds here, and kind of the stones got lost, and so you're ploughing it, and it's just a mess. And the ground needs a good leveling out, and then probably just, it could do with a lot of animal manure, and just that nutrients just put back into it. But we've got barley planted here. You see, obviously, it's ploughed, but it's not very even. It's kind of all over the place. But it's kind of it's the only section that we have really for growing larger crops, and we really want to get into grain. So this is barley. Now, barley in hotter parts of the world, it ripens in 60 days, but I reckon here we'll probably do us in about 90 days. So we have half barley on this side, and then over here we have oats and bits of grass and bits of buttercup. But you can see some of the oats have started to come up now. You can see just a little bit just beside that slate. See what I mean? The ground's really rough. There's slate in it, there's stone in it. It needs some TLC, but that's one advantage to the ploughing is it brings all that stuff up, I suppose, and gives us something better to work with. So that's the plan we have. So this is probably about 1/5 of an acre, and so we have a 1/10 of barley and 1/10 of oats, and hopefully that'll give us kind of mill our own barley flour and make our own porridge. Right, I'm going to show you some of our trees now. So this beauty is very, very old beauty. Obviously it was a tree once, but now it's fallen over. All the trees here seem to be like this. They weren't really cared for, so they kind of, as they've got older, they've aged and bent over. Now this is a quince. Now, we've never actually been fortunate enough to harvest a quince off this yet, because the birds keep getting to them before us. But I'm very optimistic this year that we'll get something out of it. You can see it's a later blooming thing than apples. Now, if we compare that to here, these are our apples. This is our young stuff patch. Now, before we knew that we had a deer problem. We planted these and then they came and give things a good pruning. So these smaller ones here and over there, they're kind of suffering a bit because the deer give them a good pruning. That's a Jonah Gold apple, this smaller one that's quite tall and blooming quite nicely. I'm not sure about the shape of it. I have to read up more on pruning apple trees when they're young. I know about how to look after older ones, you know, because I'm kind of more about the restoration and regenerating and the older things than I am about looking after the newer things. So that's some information I need to look up on, is how to actually prune these to a proper shape. So if you look over there, we have the older tree. Now we got about we got a large box of apples out of it, and we were able to eat a lot. So I don't know, like, I'm really bad at estimating numbers, like, but 25 kilos of apples off that. And we had that one netted. We didn't have the other ones netted, and obviously the pigeons came along. The pigeons have been here a lot longer than us. We've been here 3 years. The pigeons have been here for generations. And the pigeons got the other apples. So we have to get the rest of them netted this year, and just to enjoy our harvest. And they can have the ivy, and they can have the hawberries and the crab apples and all sort of thing. But I want the good apples. Right, so I have to lock up. Oh no. Why is that not closing? So that was just a little bit of a tour of the orchard. I hope you kind of liked it. You know, it's getting there. I think compared to how things were initially, you know, we didn't have a polytunnel. Whenever you came into this orchard, it looked like an Amazonian jungle. It was full of rhododendron. It was full of brambles, and like we got a strimmer in, and you had like a very narrow 18-inch path that you could get in through the midst of it. And now it's completely different. It's a lovely open space that you can see from one side to the other. You can see the walls and kind of some of the original features of the place, and it's just so much nicer, and so much it's a nicer place to be in now. So it's about time for me to head back now and get a cup of tea, and I don't know, put my feet up and do some editing, I suppose. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it's informative. Gardening and self-sufficiency, it can be a bit of a battle. It's, you know, not everybody's piece of cake, but I enjoy it, and I think it's worth it. I think, you know, in the long term, seeing what this place is going to look like in the future, what it's going to be able to provide for our family and for other families in terms of like a vision of sustainability and Christian community. That's really where our hearts are. So if you want to follow us on this journey, then please like and subscribe and share. And thank you. Welcome to the Old Rectory.